I was fed up with the roles that the industry was having me audition for. Right. The amount of times that I heard people be like, okay, but now can you do that with an urban accent?
Right.
I was like, but which one though?
Right, yeah.
And also I went to school, I studied classical theater. It was like 4 years of doing Shakespeare and all, Macbeth and all of this stuff, and teachers getting rid of my New York accent to then go out and audition and for people to be like, oh, can you just put a little urban twist on that?
What up? It's Dramos, and this is the recap. Of course, as I do each and every week, breaking down some of the biggest headlines from this last week. My guest this week is my homie. She is the host of the Get Up on Spotify, Spotify's only morning show, Kat Lazo. She'll be hopping on in just a little bit to help me break down some of this last week's biggest stories. Before she does, though, man, let's get to some of the BS from this last week. All right, so this last week, we saw the culmination of a story that I first covered back when it made headlines a few months ago, and that is the story of Governor Andrew Cuomo out of New York and the several sexual harassment allegations that he was accused of. Now, he still denies these claims, but Attorney General Letitia James and the person that he actually appointed to investigate this case, she actually found that 11 of the claims against Governor Cuomo were credible. Now, Cuomo, of course, is an attorney himself and has access to some of the best attorneys in the country. So the one thing I think that we'd be able to count on when it comes to him is him having a solid defense and fighting this tooth and nail in the name of truth. Well, that would be true if we weren't stuck in this sort of never-ending episode of The Twilight Zone that is the current state of the United States. You see, Cuomo and his brilliant defense team, they went with the age-old defense of, I'm not a perv, I'm just Italian. Take a listen.
I now understand that there are generational or cultural perspectives that, frankly, I hadn't fully appreciated. And I have learned from this.
Yeah, he's right. It's not that he decided to use his stature and his office as the basis for some sort of meat market for horny, middle-aged, lonely men to creep out women young enough to be his daughters. No, it's not that. It's that our generation just doesn't understand culture, right? I mean, Cuomo has finally agreed to step down, thankfully. But of course, he still maintains that, he essentially did nothing wrong. At this point, let's be honest, the damage, it's been done. And Andrew Cuomo, he joins a long list of politicians whose power went to their heads. Now, my heart does, in fact, go out to the women who've had to relive this whole experience publicly. And my hope is that this will now not be something that follows them for the rest of their lives. And also, my hope is that things like this will serve as a warning and as a correction to a culture that enables men in positions of power to create toxic environments and prey upon women who are just trying to make a living for themselves. And side note here, you can't tell me that there aren't greater forces at work with a sense of humor, controlling this whole life that we know of, because the person replacing Cuomo will be Kathy Hochul, who will be the first ever female governor of New York. It's like God was like, my bad, I wasn't paying attention. How can I fix this? Right. The first ever female governor of New York. That'll work. And just like I ended last time when I spoke about Cuomo and these allegations, I'd like to give the men out there the same reminder. So listen up, please. While I know it sounds incredibly scary to actually have to put forth effort into meeting a woman and impressing her with an actual conversation that doesn't have to do with your power or your money, I promise you, it is possible. You can do this. And while this shouldn't be something I have to remind you of, remember, the office is not a place to pick up women. That's what dating apps are for. And on those particular nights where you feel extra lonely, just handle it the way the rest of us do by watching porn, okay? Thank you, man. And with that said, let's get to my guest for today's episode. She is a multimedia producer and host, and currently the host of Spotify's flagship morning show, The Get Up. My homie, Kat Lazo. How we feeling?
Hey, I'm good. You know, we were actually just on the mic together, so it's nice to see your face again.
I know, we've been seeing too much of each other, maybe. I don't know.
Not yet.
Okay,
I don't think we've gotten there yet.
We haven't gotten sick of each other yet, which is good. So, I mean, listen, I want to get your perspective on all that's going on right now as far as pop culture and a few things as far as Hollywood as well, because I know that is your expertise. So if it's cool with you, let's kind of dive into some of these topics.
Please tell me what's going on.
All right. I mean, let's start here with some like celebrity goss. I mean, you got J-Lo and Ben out there apparently house shopping. Yes, Bennifer. All our like Y2K feels are coming back right now.
Not mine.
No?
No. So I'm not a Bennifer. I'm not a Bennifer fan. And here's why.
Okay.
We know that J-Lo is she's a lover of love, right? When she falls deeply. And I feel like we all got that one homegirl where it's like, oh damn, here she goes again, you know?
Right.
And I feel like I'm that friend on the other side who's like, okay, I'm looking out for her. Come on, like you just fall too easily. And also, you know, back in the day when they were first a couple, she released a song called Dear Ben.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard this song.
I have not, because that seems like it's a deep cut. I wasn't that big of a J-Lo music head.
Bruh, I had the CD. I heard that song. I was probably way too young to be listening to something like that. Let me break it down. In that track, Dear Ben, she just goes in describing how good sex is with him. but in a way where you're like, yo, okay, so say like TMI, like, you know, you could just tell me it was a good time, but I don't need all those details. So for that reason alone, I'm like, he brings the TMI out of her. Also the back tattoo. I'm not here for his
Phoenix,
back tattoo.
not here for it.
Neither is she.
I mean, it is interesting. I guess it seems like good sex really does go a long way for a lot of people. I think that's the moral of this story. I mean, damn.
Yo, they're also both Leos. So, you know, that Leo energy, you know, two lions all riled up in bed, that could be it. But I don't know. I'm a little bit upset about this. I hope there's someone else. Okay,
so if you were like her actual friend, you'd be like, hey, I think you just need to chill out just a little bit.
You know, I'd be like, Mira, like, take things slow. You know, we know that y'all have history, but, you know, he may have changed and he may not be the person that you think he is. So just take things slow. You just got out of a new relationship too.
Right.
So,
an engagement.
An engagement at that. Yes.
I mean, listen, I'm pulling for J-Lo. I just want her to be happy at the end of the day, you know?
Don't we all?
It's a beautiful thing. All right, so let's kind of keep it in Hollywood, but on a different kind of level. I mean, we're seeing this push for like, you know, more representation for Latinos in Hollywood. I know for you, you've worked in casting, you work behind the scenes, in front of the camera, all that kind of stuff. We're even seeing this superhero movie everybody's excited about, Blue Beetle, which has a Latino lead in Zolo Maridueña. He's the kid from Cobra Kai. I mean, having worked in casting, let's kind of take it from that perspective a little bit. I mean, are you excited by what you see? I mean, and generally, what has been your experience when it comes to casting in Latinos and the roles that they're offered? Okay, so just a heads up, I know nothing about superhero world, Blue Beetle, or anything.
Same here. My perspective is definitely coming from having been in casting rooms as a casting associate and also auditioning as an actor. And here's the thing, right? At the same time that I'm here to champion for Latino representation, I think the question we have to ask ourselves is which Latinos are getting the most limelight right now, right? Okay. So when you think of something like In the Heights and the controversy that came out of that, the Latinos who are often applauded and are given the awards and given the main character roles and recognized are non-Black Latinos, right? True. Or they are like mestizo Latinos, like myself, right? Someone who's like a mixture of indigenous and white European. Right. And so for me, it's like, yes, this is great, but the bar is very low. Like our Afro-Latino brothers and sisters, siblings have not gotten enough attention at
Sure.
all whatsoever. So I feel like only until all of us are represented am I going to be like, oh yeah, that's what's up. Great for all of us.
Right.
Right now, it's not cutting it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point because I had a Mara La Negra on my show a couple of weeks back, and obviously she's a huge advocate for Afro Latinas. But I was kind of asking because she was really harsh on In the Heights, and I was saying to her,
and she should be.
Right, and she checked me, and I appreciate it because I was kind of like, well, shouldn't we just be celebrating the fact that we're out here getting a big look like this? And she said, listen, that is something to be celebrated, but at the end of the day, we have not done right by ourselves as well. I mean, if you look at Telemundo and all these other TV stations that are Latin run and have Latin people as their forward facing, faces of the company, they still haven't done right by the Afro Latinas when they've been put in that position of power.
But you know what, Dramos? Let's not even look there, right? Like as two individuals who have been born here in the States, like let's not even look at Latin American media. Let's concentrate here. When you think of the top grossing Latinos right now, we're talking about the Sofia Vergara's. We're talking about, Gina Rodriguez's. We're talking about who gets casted. We're talking about John Leguizamo. Yet again, these are all non-Black Latinos who may fit into like a mestizo type of racial background.
Right.
But yet Afro-Latinos are constantly erased out of what supposedly, our community that is, we embrace everybody. And it's just not enough. And I think it takes a lot. I think what needs to happen behind the scenes is have people in seats of authority that recognize this as an issue and actually give up some power and be like, oh, I know that this celebrity, they're an A-list Latina and they got that name recognition, but actually, for this role, why don't we consider this person? That's what really should have been happening in something, for example, like In the Heights, where, clearly there was an error there.
Yeah. I mean, well, let's even just talk about historically when it comes to the parts that Latinos have been given in Hollywood. You know what I mean? We're always like, either the drug dealer, we are the villain, the women are over-sexualized, you know what I mean? They are like the person who the white dude is cheating with, you know what I mean? All these different things. I mean, did you kind of see a lot of that kind of narrative being pushed when you were in Hollywood?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's why I got into the work that I now do, which is like producing, because I was fed up with the roles that the industry was having me audition for. The amount of times that I heard people be like, okay, but now can you do that with an urban accent?
Right.
I'm like, but which one though?
Right, yeah.
And also I went to school, I studied classical theater. It was like 4 years of doing Shakespeare and all, Macbeth and all of this stuff and teachers getting rid of my New York accent to then go out and audition and for people to be like, oh, can you just put a little urban twist on that? And yeah, the roles, honestly, Dramos, like the roles were emotionally taxing on me, especially because at the age that I was auditioning, I was a teenager. I was 17, 18, going out on auditions by myself. And to realize that the roles that you were going out for were never main characters. It was always, like the Latina best friend to the white main character. And then secondly, as a woman, specifically, so much sexualized like imagery, right? That I was supposed to be portraying. And that takes a toll on your emotional health. And that's one of the reasons why I was like, I'm not cut out for this. Maybe someone else can like tolerate this and wants to push forward as an actor. But for me, I was like, I'm out. I'm going to figure out another way. And producing was the way that I did that.
No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you definitely have to protect your own mental at the end of the day. And it's funny because as much change as I feel like it seems is happening, there really is so much more work to be done. Like I'm not gonna call out the brand or the company, but I have my podcast and an ad read was sent to me and they wanted me to reference a cousin named Nacho. And this is like a gigantic
cousin
brand.
Named Nacho?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we all don't have a cousin named Nacho. And I was like, what? I was like, who wrote this and who allowed this to even make it in front of me to say, hey, can you read this ad on the air? You know what I mean? Like, and it's obvious that while they know it's a Latin focused show, there still is not a Latin person writing the copy to make sure that's in the proper voice.
Well, you know what? I almost want to push back against that as someone who also worked at they were a Latino digital platform that created content for other Latinos. I think we can also be very guilty of perpetuating these stereotypes of like really hanging on to like tropes within our community. I think, you know, abuela jokes, vaporu, you know, Vicks, the chancla, we've all heard it. And I think that's because at the end of the day, what ends up happening is that we are striving for the white dollar.
Sure.
Right. So we know that it's not enough that we are like creating the content. We have to own the content. We have to own the building. Right.
Right.
And if not that, then what ends up happening is we're creating content, but we know that we have to meet the demands of the white gaze and specifically the white male gaze. Right. So it's like, okay, well, I'm happy doing, you know, making Latino content. But at the end of the day, how is this going to be palatable for mainstream audiences, aka white people?
Of course. No, absolutely. And also, we can't allow ourselves to fall to the almighty dollar and be bought. You know what I mean? Especially because I feel like a lot of Latinos don't realize what is riding on all of this right now. You know what I mean? Like this attention that we're having, we need to come correct. And we can't sit here and just say, oh, because it's an easy check, I'm going to now do something that makes not only myself look bad, but also my culture look bad. You know, and that's exactly what that was in that instance. I'm sure this brand was paying a lot of money for this ad spot, and everybody was just kind of like, okay, I'll turn a blind eye to it because the check is clearing. And that's just not the way we have to think. We have to stand for something at the end of the day. Absolutely. And, you know, what makes it hard is that for those of us who come from an economic background, low income background, that's a tough decision, you know, especially when it comes to like social capital, meaning like doors are opening for you. Sure. Maybe you're the first in your family to finish college to get, you know, a creative job, not a like 9-to-5 type of job. It's like, yo, I'm going to do whatever I got to do. Like if this man tells me I got to write nacho in here, I'm going to write nacho in here. So it's really difficult. It is difficult because on one hand, I do side with you. I think a lot of us need to take a stronger stance on behalf of other people and not just our own interests. And then as someone who holds a lot of privilege economically, you know, growing up in a middle-class background, it's like, I don't know that struggle. I don't know what that struggle is to be like, I'm in this position and I don't really care. I got to look out for myself. Right. No, I mean, that's definitely a great point. And I think that, I mean, even if I look back on my own career, it's definitely been taking the stairs instead of the elevator. You know what I mean? And it's only until like years later that I'm now in a position like where I'm cool. But like, I think you just have to be willing to stand for something at the end of the day. I would hope that, you know what I mean? And I get what you're saying, but I mean, I think, man, we have to, I think as a culture, and not even just Latinos, but as people understand that it's more important to stand for something to get success when you're actually standing for something as opposed to just kind of conforming for that quick, you know, fix. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so, all right, so let's talk about something that I know you're a big advocate for. We touched on this on the Get Up, Spotify's morning show, which I'm guest hosting with you and Xavier. But let's talk about this. So one of the big stories, and of course, this has ruffled some feathers, you know, and also gotten a lot of positive feedback as well, was that Robin from Batman and Robin is going to be coming out as bisexual in a new comic. And of course, I mean, you're somebody who identifies as bisexual. You're very proud of that, and you very much advocate on behalf of that. So you have the floor. Why is something like this so important for the people who say, like, do we really need to make a comic book character, you know, have a sexuality like that? So here's the thing, right? I can't speak for bisexual men, for bi men, but I think the common stigma with bisexuality is that it's not a valid sexual orientation. And what I mean by that is if a woman says she's bi, then it's always thought, oh, well, you know, she's just fooling around, but really she just likes men, you know, like if that happens. If it's a guy, then it's like, oh, well, he's just lying to himself. He's probably just gay. Right. And really, at the end of the day, what that is nothing makes sense if it doesn't circle around men, right? Sure. In both cases. If men aren't at the center of attention, it just doesn't make sense. Right. So I think with Robin specifically, to have a superhero
And that in itself is has been such a masculine figure in like our pop culture history.
Right.
So to have someone like Robin also be bisexual, I think that is going to open the eyes to a lot of young folks, a lot of young boys, tell them that it's okay. You know, we have folks like Lil Nas X, who thankfully is also doing the same, maybe in a different venue when it comes to music. And so, yeah, I think it's really important. That's the type of representation that we need. I will say, as you kind of mentioned, yeah, it is controversial because I looked at a lot of the comments. I know I'm not supposed to.
Should it's, yep.
But I looked at the comments because it's also really important to see how people are responding and to take a temperature check, right?
Right.
And so as I was looking in the comments at several posts that were announcing this, it was ugly, Dramos. It was so nasty. I don't know if you've seen it yourself.
No, I didn't dive into those comments.
Well, a lot of hate speech, a lot of ignorance. Also, I think maybe, in my opinion, maybe one of the more problematic and dangerous comments is the idea of like, why do we need this? You know, like, why do we have to identify him as bisexual? Like, you know, can't he just be a superhero? And it's so funny to me because I think when it comes to, in particular, other people who have marginalized identities, so if it's Black folks, if it's Latino folks, if it's women, it's like we have a very singular view, right? So if it's like, this is the first female Latina superhero, we're all like, oh yeah, man, I can't believe it. But then when you add one more caveat to that, that maybe doesn't resonate with your specific personal experience, then it's like, oh, why are we dividing? And it's like, that's such an unfair perspective to have, right? Especially as someone who can understand one form of marginalization.
Right. No, absolutely. I think definitely representation matters. You know what I mean? Because you have so many mental health issues that really, a lot of it is attached to people being ashamed of themselves. You know what I mean? Not feeling comfortable in their own skin. And unfortunately, society just allows that to continue to happen. And I think what people miss is that if Robin was going on a date with a woman, this wouldn't even be a conversation, right? So that's kind of the place that we have to get to. And that's why it's so important for these things to happen, because we have to get to a place where Robin goes on a date with a woman or a guy. Nobody should be batting an eye in general. You know what I mean? Because that sort of acceptance and that sort of just creation of like a reality where everybody's allowed to be themselves will allow people to feel a lot more comfortable in this world and be more comfortable in their skin. And that's what we're striving for. And I think people kind of miss that a little bit.
I'm also striving for a character like Robin, who is a guy who is bisexual, to not be the sidekick. You know, I would also love that, because I think in a way, it's a way for the industry to make some progress. Very slowly, you know, because God forbid Batman came out as bisexual. Can you imagine the comment? If Batman, or, you know, name another main superhero, if they came out as bi, I think the idea is that like people would not be able to handle it, but that we're able to handle it because, well, he's a sidekick, so it's fine.
No, that is a great point. I mean, I think the overall like moral of these stories is that we still have so much work to do, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And we're counting on people like you, Dramos, you know, hetero men in the industry. So I'm glad that you are talking about this, you're addressing this, because your audience, I know you have lots of male viewers. So I'm happy to know that we have someone like you advocating.
I appreciate that.
Representation matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an important thing to have. Like, we all have to be doing our part, you know what I mean, to get rid of this just disgusting mindset that unfortunately is so ingrained in our culture and our society.
Yes, let's get rid of it. I don't want to drink that water.
Yes, exactly. Well, Kat, I appreciate you for making some time. Obviously, The Get Up is on Spotify every morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time. I am co-hosting for the next couple of weeks, so y'all will catch me on there alongside Kat and X. Anything else you want to shout out? Your social media pages? What do you want people to check out?
Y'all can always find me at It's Kat Lazo on all platforms. I made it so easy, you know, It's Kat Lazo. So yeah, thank you, Dramos, for having me.
Of course. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you, tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning.
Yes, bright and early. I'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye. Man, big thank you to my guest this week, Kat Lazo, for hopping on. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to work with her and my guy Xavier Jernigan on the Get Up on Spotify. Again, you want to hear us all together every morning for the next couple of weeks, 7 a.m. Eastern time on Spotify, the Get Up. You can check it out right there. Man, and with that said, let's end, of course, as we always do, on some positivity. Now, this week's quote comes to us from Ricky Martin. It doesn't necessarily have a connection to the topics that I started the show with or anything I really spoke about throughout the show, but it's just something that kind of spoke to me as I was looking through quotes for this week's show, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So the quote is, "Every day begins like a blank chalkboard on which each one of us can write the poem of our present and our dreams for the future." And I just found this incredibly moving because, I mean, so many of us are going through it, right? Life is difficult as it is. And then coming off of a year like we saw last year, and just also so much that's just still going on in the world, so much uncertainty. We're all kind of feeling it. A lot of us are, at least, right? Myself included. And I just think it's so empowering to think to ourselves that every day that we're blessed to wake up, we start off with like a blank slate and we can write our story, right? We can write what we want our present to be, and we can write what we want our dreams and what our future to look like. We get to choose how we approach each and every day. And I just think that's a beautiful way to look at it, man. Each and every day is a blank slate, a new opportunity to change the things that you want to change, as well as embrace the things that, you know, are really helping you in that moment, and also looking to the future and creating the life that you want for yourself down the road. Each and every day gives you the opportunity to do all of that. And I just think that's so incredibly beautiful. Now, with that said, thank y'all so much for tuning into another episode. I appreciate you. I'll be back next week to talk about it all again. Until then, stay safe. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.